will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. All board members are present. First up is review and approval of the October 22nd public meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the meeting. Should be on time.
Usually you want to get
Approve the October 22nd, 2024 public meeting minutes. Second.
discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. October 29th public meeting minutes.
Motion to accept the October 29th, 2024 public meeting minutes. Second.
Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Date and location of the next meeting is November 19th, is a budget work session at Belmont Elementary School. And I will not be here, so Jill Sawyer. Okay, public communication and correspondence. Seeing none. All right, first up, I should have welcomed our newest member, Colby Davis, correct? Mm-hmm. All right, from Belmont Middle School.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I know you had a report in the packet, but we'd love to hear from you and some highlights, and the board may have some questions.
Well, all of the grades are learning what they should be.
Perfect. Fantastic, Grace. Our work is done.
Motion to adjourn.
Fifth grade is learning things, and they're learning things like the scientific method and things. They're learning things with scientific method, using microscopes and live specimens. They're learning grammar and language and vocabulary and ELA, while learning usual multiplication with middle school and math. And they're learning how to run some businesses and social studies, doing a fun project where you can make some prices and stuff like that, and you get to try and control your money accurately. It's called polka dots. Sixth grade is learning things like the nature of science with hypotheses, and they're comparing data. They're reading a novel in ELA, learning character development, text evidence, and vocab acquisition. And they're learning ratios and proportions in math with unit rates, and learning geography, how to use compasses with map skills, and social studies. Seventh grade is learning many different energies in science, and we're doing experiments with the different energies and making a presentation on how they work and how they can transfer. We read and watched The Giver, and the math, they're learning to add and subtract fractions with some other things. In social studies, they are learning about colonization and how they affected Native Americans and what happened to land and just how the 13 colonies started. Eighth grade, they're learning about the periodic table and elements with science. They're reading and testing on The Outsiders in the ELA. In math, they're learning to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, scientific notations, And they're doing it, and there's one advanced class doing 9th grade math, algebra 1. So, and we're trying to, I'm in the class, we're trying to kind of do it even faster than 9th grade has, having slightly shorter classes. So we're trying to get through it a little quicker, which is a bit more of a challenge too. In social studies, 8th grade is also learning about presidents, their leadership, and they ran a mock election through the whole school. There were presidents and governors and just people that people live for. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade had a welcome back dance supported by the student council, organized, and we had a successful Halloween dance supported by NJHS, who helped set up for it and helped prepare it. Student council is successfully sold some boot grams for Halloween to around the school, and are making things for teachers for conferences, and we're trying to spread out the safer gobble wobble we're doing to raise food for Thanksgiving for the need. The whole school, all grades, had a red ribbon week with theme days with different things to wear, and everybody is going to participate in the Gobble Wobble food fundraiser. And usually it's kind of a competition between the grades of who can give the most.
Highly competitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did you collect all this information?
I went around to all of the different teachers and kind of asked some students and stuff too that I know, and then I reported it all as I walked around, and then so I also organized it.
Did you come up with this format? Because this is very clear and concise and highly concise.
I have seen it before, but I did make sure to check it all over, make sure I did the right kind of format, make it look nice and neat.
Good job.
Other questions for Colby? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colby.
Do we have I know we don't, but are we going to have a high school rep this year?
We don't at this time.
We have an individual who's interested. He wants to talk to me a little bit more about it before he commits.
Okay.
But I'm working on it.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the plunge, Colby. We appreciate it. It's very helpful for us to hear
Jumping right
from,
in.
to hear from the students, so thank you. In the packet, I don't know if we have it on here, but we have BES from BES, PTO from Best PTO. There's a report in here, and then there's also one from Belmont Middle School PTO. The reports, and appreciate the work that our PTOs do for the schools in the Shaker Regional Schools. Okay, principals report. First up is Mrs. Chubb. Go ahead.
Hi, hope everyone's doing well. We've been really busy, as you can probably see from the report, both with academics and with school-wide events. We've had a really nice first couple of months of school. Students really doing well in their classes and responding well to instruction and intervention. And I was especially proud of our 3rd and 4th graders with a couple of our events that are usually carried more by 5th grade. And without a 5th grade, they really stepped up and did a lovely job. We're writing the Constitution play, has some really heavy lines to learn and a lot of memorizing, and they do that play in the first couple of weeks of school. Usually those bigger roles go to fifth graders. And our third and fourth graders really stepped up and did a wonderful job with that. Same with our harvest supper. That's an event for third, fourth, and fifth typically. And it's an opportunity for third to sort of learn the ropes from older students so that they can take on leadership roles when they become fourth and fifth graders. And this year they really had to jump right in without a fifth grade and only 9 fourth graders. They really needed to step up, and they really did. So I'm very proud of what we've done so far this year, and I welcome any questions or comments you may have.
Questions?
I always enjoy reading them. If I don't have, comments, it's definitely good to see what's happening inside the buildings, and that goes for everybody.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Well, I give you more than I've given in a while, I think. Our school theme, celebrating our growth, is new this year, so we're focused on celebrating all the great things that students are doing. We did that in our first squad assembly, which went over really well. We were able to recognize groups and with those students. So it's a very positive event. Fall Family Festival came back, so probably a lot of you are familiar with that. That was good. A lot of families in attendance, as it was. That's the first time it's run since COVID. But I mean, you can read the report, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
How's the piloting going, actually, for both?
Yeah, I think Silas is going to report on that, but it's going well. Our teachers are working very hard. I think they've also raised some concerns. And so I think Silas is going to talk a little bit about that. I think he's going to report on survey results. So, as with any pilot, it's difficult, right? It's a lot of work that goes into learning the new materials and practices.
Other questions? Okay. Mr. Cove?
Hey everyone.
Hi.
I tried to give you lots of pictures because the pictures tell quite a bit of the story, which is pretty exciting. There's a lot of things going on at the middle school. We had our first report out, our first progress report, which went pretty well. We had some challenges with the setup of our actual format of the progress report, but we're kind of working through some of that. But we're happy with the way it looks and some of the information that we're able to get out there. So we're just, our teachers, our school counselors have really worked hard to, get the training and get what we need out of our progress report now. So spent a lot of time just trying to get people trained, communicating with families to access the grade book and things like that, which is, we've gotten some pretty good feedback. So we're going to continue to kind of work with the format as we kind of go through the school year. And so this has been a big help, as well as folks at Alma to help us get the report the way we want it. So far we're pretty happy with it, and you'll see a few additional pieces as we send out more progress reports as we kind of tweak the format of it. Always love the Bulldog's Bark, so that's a link, so feel free to read that. It's just, the Bulldog Barks, all of our clubs are just packed with kids, which is awesome to see. We have so many kids, I don't have a specific number, but that are involved in our clubs after school and things, which is just, it's really awesome, actually. We've had to think about the days at which clubs are, because there's so many kids involved, so they can participate if there's a student that needs to participate in multiple clubs. So that's a good problem to have, actually. So that's exciting. We've really taken advantage of Karen Gingrich, our enrichment teacher. She works pretty closely with our classroom teachers. There's some sewing projects. We do some projects within our STEM class and science classes, like the Makey, which is kind of like an electrical circuit type activity that goes along really closely with a lot of our content in our classes. The orienteering, Colby mentioned a little bit about in the 6th grade social studies class. So they're learning about longitude, latitude, different things like that, but they're actually getting outside using compasses and those types of things, which is really great. Great concerts. We have the mock election was really great. Our entire school participated in it. It stemmed from our 8th grade social studies class. Our 8th graders kind of ran it, but all the students 5 through 8 participated in it, which is interesting. The results that we came up in the building were not so far off of how it actually panned out too. So you can see some of the results that are in there. It was a really good experience for our kids to go through. And then if you didn't see, we had a reporter from the Daily Sun come in, so we had a nice article right on the newspaper as well. Yeah, the Pumpkinomics code we reported on, that just to expand on that, that's just a great opportunity for kids. They do learn to run a business, but they also incorporate all content areas in there, and then they kind of culminate with presentations, and we call it Shark Tank. So some of the adults in the building, we kind of dress up in theme, and they have to ask for money, basically, to run their business based on some of the profits and things like that they want to make. And so we kind of simulate the Shark Tank show while giving them an opportunity to kind of present and share their ideas and things in the group. So that's a lot of fun as well. And then you just notice that there's still quite a few positions at the middle school that are open. We're trying. We've had several interviews. One of the things we're struggling with is people will apply, we'll schedule an interview almost immediately, and they won't show up. I would say in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've had 6 folks not show up and not communicate. So that's been a challenge for us as well. So we're working on it. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
You said that in here for minimal subbing candidates, that you're not able to compensate teachers for providing internal coverage?
That's on the high school report.
Sorry.
It's okay. Our subs have gotten a little bit better. I want to say pretty regularly we've had access to 3 substitutes now. And in the past, we've only had access to 1 maybe. So that's been pretty good. We've had some additional subs apply, so it's been helpful. Especially when we're down 9 positions, that helps fill some of those. It's not perfect, but it does help.
Do we do subs for assistants?
Sometimes, especially when they're like a 1-to-1.
All these vacant positions, are they up on whatever tool we use? Do they get posted and they just get left there? Do we repost? Like, how does that work?
So School Spring automatically will sunset them, and I get a notice, and the principals get a notice if they go into review status, and then we go back and reactivate them.
And then sometimes in ed jobs, we'll repost them so that they become.
Okay, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is they would kind of, if they get reposted, they rise back up to the top of.
We also post the positions in the paper as well. As well as there's an employment board that we use as well.
Handshake.
There's Handshake, and then there's Employment Security.
I'd also say the other thing too that we've really tried to be active about is communicating with the local universities, and like for example, Lake Region up here has a LNA program, like a nursing type program, so reaching out to them because we have a couple of LNAs that we need to hire. It's interesting because a lot of the schools that have educational programs, their numbers are down, so those kids are getting snatched up, right? They're getting jobs before they even graduate.
If you could find, if you advertise and if you could get the right person, I know this is a lot of ifs, would it be advantageous if you feel that we went the route of a full-time sub?
It would definitely be beneficial, and we looked at that, I want to say four years ago. quote me on that, but I think it was about 4 years ago, and the cost for that was high, very high.
Yeah, no, I'm
budgeting
just,
purpose-wise.
I mean, I'm just going off of, experience as a teacher. If you need to be out, it's always better to have a known quantity, that's coming in, and, if you can offer, if at the district, if we could offer, a higher salary, no one wants to talk about, money, but when you look at the overall cost benefit basis, I've never been in a school that didn't have multiple teachers out virtually every single day. So, I don't know, something for us to discuss, maybe. But 9 positions out of the middle school is significant, that's for sure.
Other questions for Mr. Pope? Mr. Finch?
Whoa. I can kind of jump off that same theme. I actually led my report off with our hiring updates. Very excited that it looks like we're going to have a science teacher to fill the semester 2 position. So an individual who's coming in with a statement of eligibility. He has a relationship with some individuals who are already in our science department and has a very strong physics background, which is extremely rare to find somebody who is entering the teaching profession with a physics background. So we're really excited about that. Also had an interview for our one open one-to-one behavioral position. So Mr. Pope is talking about having a lot of positions. Again, we feel very fortunate at the high school that if that individual were to be put into that position, our support staff positions are filled right now. Still are having a hard time finding a special education teacher. There's just no applicants, let alone somebody that we really are excited to move forward with. So that's been a concern. Mark, since I know you're going to ask the question about the subbing situation, first of all, I would love to have a sub in the building just kind of dedicated for that, because you're right, every day there are multiple people out, for a variety of reasons. What I was alluding to in there about compensation is that the way the contract is written, there's only certain types of leave that a teacher who gives up his or her prep time can get compensated for. So we have to get pretty creative sometimes. Like if we bring in 3 subs or 2 subs, however many we can actually bring in from the sub list, those individuals oftentimes are slotted for folks who are like on a professional day or a personal day, because the compensation in the contract alludes to sick days and FMLA. So we can compensate for those types of things. We take the subs, we put them over here. It's a juggling act almost every morning, just to make sure that we have all of our positions filled and we got somebody in the classroom every day. So again, we get creative with it. We haven't had a day when we haven't figured something out, but it's every morning. The transition to Alma.
So there's times where a current faculty member could be asked to cover a class on their prep and not be given a...
It's possible, but we find other ways to do it.
Okay.
Our transition to Alma has been pretty smooth for a brand new system, and you take all the new grading practices and things like that, and you add all that together. The first progress report that we did, it was really more of an eligibility check than a progress report. It went pretty well. There were definitely some things that we learned from that. Some of the the errors and notices that Alma comes up with that Empower never did. It gave us an opportunity to kind of look through that and see how the program is going to respond to the grades as we put them in. We just closed the work submission for students for the first quarter. I can't believe we're already halfway through the semester, but that was last Friday. So teachers have a couple of days to finalize their grades and put comments in, and so those are going to be updated. But students had to submit their work for quarter 1 by last Friday to give teachers some time to do that. Our school counseling, one big thing, our senior transcripts, which are literally just hand entering data year after year after year from all the different Empower reports. Silas has been a big contributor to that, and Polly Kamiri has been a monster contributor to that. Just making sure that our seniors have their transcripts ready for application season. And we've had some kids who were considering early action or early decision. we have not had a situation where a kid did not have an ALMA transcript ready. One of the benefits of moving all the grades from Empower into ALMA is that we are literally sending one transcript versus having to go back to those dual transcript days. It just becomes a mess because you're trying to report out two very different things. So putting everything into ALMA also gives us the opportunity to have that 1.25 AP honors and early college multiplier reflected all the way through it. So it's just one report as if we had ALMA all 4 years that these kids were in high school. So it's a much, much cleaner way to do it, but it has been a labor of love with the emphasis on labor. School counseling, in addition to that effort, has been really, really busy. They've done tons of good stuff. We had a college fair. We held PSATs for our juniors. Jocelyn Chase has been an intern with us. Her time with us is going to lapse in the next month or so, but she's been really great to work with. The college applications are very hot right now. We also have Red Ribbon Week. That's something else that we hold. Melissa Allen, our SAP, is the person in charge of that. Our school profile is something I provided in my packet. Hopefully that faded in there, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. When Polly, Kamari, and I sat down to do that, we definitely came to some realizations where, yes, the transcript is going to be a single transcript all from ALMA, but there were some changes that were made this year that really, we wanted to provide the context of this year versus the context of the previous 3. So as the years progress and as our grading policies are, just what we are in now, that school profile will get simpler and simpler because we won't have to be alluding to those previous years and definitions that we were working with prior to. I wanted to highlight our School to Career program once again. Polly Ingram is very, very busy all the time, doing a lot of work with individual students, making sure that they have opportunities to reach out to workplaces and career avenues that they want to at least explore, if not really dive into. French exchange program was outstanding. We hosted 22 French exchange students. Our students are going to be heading to France in the spring. I can't believe that I didn't do that when I was in high school, because what an unbelievable experience. Every year when it's the day that our visiting students are departing, our kids show up and they all have red eyes because they have cried that whole morning saying goodbye to their person. They get so close to these kids and they can't wait to go and see them at their homes in the spring. We had some Halloween fun. You see some pictures of some students there, as well as some faculty and staff who got involved. Amira definitely threw some great robotics updates in there. Our robotics team continues to be an outstanding aspect of our school. Fall sports wrapped up. They all had very, very good seasons, and we're looking forward to winter sports beginning. Next Wednesday, Mr. Bellier is having a winter sports information night for all winter sport athletes to make sure that everybody's on the same page with things like eligibility and attendance and all that stuff, just to make sure we're kicking it off the right way. So lots of good stuff at the high school. Very, very proud of where we are.
Questions for Mr. Finch?
Thanks.
Silas, curriculum, instruction, and assessment report.
All right. Good evening to everybody. Thank you. Kind of 2 parts to my report, and one is just an informational update of how the pilot is going for our literacy instruction resources. The other is meant to be an update on state testing results, but there was nothing new available for me to give you since July. So certainly it's there again, and any questions that you have about the state testing results, I'll do my best to answer. I was hoping that we would have by now the state comparisons, but that's not available yet.
Silas, do they say, are they projecting anything?
I haven't
seen any.
I haven't heard either.
Yeah. So, we can look. So the kind of overview of where we stand with our pilot, we are using wit and wisdom as resources to help guide and shape our literacy instruction for grades K through 4 in both schools, not every classroom, because it was kind of a chance for teachers to opt in to using something new. I kind of explained the process of how we got to this point, which I think is really important. The main gist of that being, we have a lot of research available kind of out there in terms of what is effective literacy instruction. How do kids learn to read, and how can we best meet those needs? And along with that, we have not had a strong curriculum for literacy instruction at the elementary level in a few years. The official resource that folks were using was Reading Street, which was adopted before I got here and really wasn't being used consistently. So a lot of the feedback that we were hearing from teachers in the last 2 or 3 years was, we're putting in a lot of time trying to find our own resources, that teachers didn't have something readily available for them to go to, and that was creating inconsistencies, which create gaps. So if you can imagine 3 or 4 different 3rd grade teachers all finding their own things here and there, one teacher gets something good for this aspect and another gets something good for this, but when they come up to 4th grade, now you've got a mixed class and you've got gaps all over the place, and that's a really tough situation to be in. So in response to that, we wanted to be deliberate and methodical in the way that we were selecting the resources we wanted to try. So it did take all of last year with a representative committee to kind of narrow down our choices. We got to 2 resources that are pretty similar: Core Knowledge, or CKLA, and Wit and Wisdom. They have a similar approach in that they are knowledge building. That's the purpose. Is, again, from the research, we know that not only do students need to learn phonological awareness and phonics and vocabulary, they also need some background knowledge. And that was kind of illuminating for us in seeing how important that piece of it is for successful readers. So that was the direction that we wanted to go, coming from that literacy committee last year. And with the option of 2 programs, it came down to, well, if we pilot both, then we're going to have half of our teachers who tried one thing that won't be adopted. And does that seem like wasted effort? So we decided to go with just Wit and Wisdom. We had the most feedback and ability to observe those resources in action. We did visits to Plymouth Elementary and got to see a bunch of classrooms and how it was going. And a lot of what we heard from teachers, from administrators, even from representatives of the company, it's big, it's vast, there's a lot to it, and it takes a while. So I can't say I'm too surprised by the feedback that we got from the survey in the last couple of weeks, but it is important that we really pay attention to what teachers are saying in terms of how it's going right now. So the survey results that are included in the packet essentially bear out what we have been hearing from other schools, that when you're starting out in Module 1, it's really going to feel like this is not working. Teachers don't feel like it's gotten them to the point that they were looking for, where there's one go-to resource. They feel like, okay, I'm still, for a particular lesson, I've got 5 different things I'm supposed to look at, and there's way too much to do in the time that we have in class, so I have to narrow that down. They're putting in a lot of work. Teachers are putting in a lot of work. And they're also not yet seeing how this is benefiting students. And again, that's something that we've heard from other schools is it's going to seem above what kids can do until it starts to build. It's one of those designed to kind of cycle around. So you come back to those skills as students build up the routines and the classroom practices. Right now, teachers are really investing a lot of both their own planning time and class time into these kind of new procedures. So, with all of that, and I'm happy to answer any questions in more detail about what we've been hearing from teachers, but I wanted to be fully transparent with where we're at in this process. I think almost every teacher that we heard from and the survey results came in as of last Wednesday. So we're within a week on this. This is fresh feedback. Almost every teacher has been saying, if I had to choose today, I would not want to adopt wit and wisdom. That's a really important thing to hear. It's not my favorite thing to hear. And in my board report, down under information, I just wanted to kind of lay it out for you all. I see 4 possibilities when we keep going through this pilot. Maybe we get to a point where teachers are like, okay, I can see it. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can see how this will be good. And they might feel safe enough to adopt it. They might say, we need more time with these resources and we want to keep piloting in Module 2. We would get those materials so that they can keep implementing and we'll keep supporting them through that. Another option is there is a newer version coming from Great Minds. It's just not available until probably March or April. But what we've seen of it, it's doing what teachers are asking for. It's responding to what they've said in terms of it's too much to plan, it's not teacher friendly. So the newer version called Arts and Letters does look promising in terms of the concerns that teachers have expressed. And then the 4th option is we've seen enough and we don't think this is right for our school settings and our learners. So I am committed, as are Christine Stearns, our instructional coach, and Jill Hardison, the reading specialist here at BES, as well as the elementary principals. We're all committed to responding to the feedback we've gotten to teachers in the moment. We're not taking that as, oh boy, sorry guys. It's, we need to make some alterations, some shifts in the way that we're supporting teachers as they're doing this really difficult work. And we've got some plans in the works, and we'll be able to keep reflecting and monitoring how that's going for teachers as we implement. Here's a streamlined planning process. Here's what we've done to pare down the resources so that okay, here's a couple of things to look at instead of the big ocean of everything. So that's where we're at, and I really want to express my deep gratitude and appreciation for everybody who's been working hard on this. The folks I just mentioned who have been doing a lot of the planning and support for teachers, and of course the teachers who are really doing the work in the trenches. They're putting in a ton of effort, and they're learning a lot and doing the best they can. So it's not easy. We know we need something that is going to be aligned with the research of how kids learn to read, and we know we need something that's going to be viable for teachers to be able to implement. So on we go. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the pilot and how that's going, where we see things going next, and any follow-ups on the SAS.
So you said 5-6 years ago that there was not a strong ELA program at the elementary.
Yes.
So if I back up 2 more years, where when my daughter was involved in that, they said that they were focusing on ELA because ELA it was shown as a weakness, and that class was the focus of ELA first, second, third, well into fourth grade, and all along, my wife and I were asking, when are we doing the math? When are we doing the math? When are we doing the math? Oh, we'll get to it. 2 years later, when my second daughter comes in, now all of a sudden there was a complete reversal, and we were told now math is being shown as the weakest, so now we're focusing on math. So when you stand here and say that we didn't have a strong ELA program, but my family was being told that this was our focus, I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around that entire few years of curriculum, and then how does that play into where we're at right now?
Yeah, so I do think that there was a lot of focus on the standards and expectations within reading and writing, and in my first couple of years here, so 6 years ago, as we were developing the standards for everything, where that was kind of the curriculum focus, the instructional focus really was on, let's make sure that we're implementing consistent and explicit ways to teach the reading foundational skills. And so we have Foundations, which is really focused on phonics. It also encompasses handwriting and some other key skills for building the ability to decode. And we also had Heggerty, which is a focus on phonological awareness. So taking that oral language that we hear and connecting it to the written language. So those pieces were the focus at that time. Those are still here. So what's important to note is Wit and Wisdom is not a reading foundational skills program. It does not teach phonics and how to read. It's about comprehension, it's about vocabulary, it's about knowledge building. So those are kind of the focuses of Wit and Wisdom. And what's nice is that it does align very closely with Heggerty and Foundations that we're continuing to use. So by kind of dovetailing, here's the foundational skills, here's the comprehension and knowledge building, that's what research supports, is how we can really build our kids' literacy abilities.
So are we still bouncing back and forth between, on a few-year basis, 2 or 3 year rotation of, well, ELA is showing to be weak, or now we're focusing on ELA, and then 2 or 3 years later, now we're showing math is weak, now we're focusing on math. Are we still bouncing back and forth between that?
No, and that's not the goal. The goal is let's have something consistent in place so that we aren't completely upending the way that we do things every few years like that. Sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes it's taking stock of what we've got and the gaps that we're seeing based on results and other data that we're looking at. We need kind of an overhaul, and that's the point that we were at with math a few years ago, and that's the point we're at with ELA broadly right now. So again, by being kind of deliberate and methodical with this, we want to get the resource that's going to be most effective and that will be sustainable, so that we're maintaining and keeping up with teacher turnover, making sure that they're getting trained and supported in the resources we use, and we're building that familiarity with it so that it's not taking teachers over an hour to plan each lesson. And that's the point we're at right now. So trying to set it up so that it's not okay, now all hands on deck, we're overhauling everything. It's let's get the long-range sustainable resources that will help us continue to keep improving.
I have a question. So you mentioned that some teachers are doing it, but not all. Is because we have the STAR reading Do we have the ability to track the classes that are going through this versus the ones that aren't, to see if there's a decline?
Yes, yeah, so, and we're nearing the end of trimester 1, which is where we'll get a lot of our kind of school-wide and district-wide assessment data so that we can be looking at those things. So at this point, there's not a lot, but we have kind of a baseline from the start of the year in terms of STAR and some IXL data as well. So there's some good stuff that we can start to look at once those assessments come in the next 3-4 weeks.
And then will the committee like regroup and get back together and decide like which of the 4 next steps they want to take?
Yeah.
I guess so I'm not sure you would see student results in that. I mean, that's not what, I mean, the research wouldn't say that you would see.
Right.
No,
but-
I'm saying to make a decision based on,
So where I was going with this is if there's a decline. Because obviously, if there's a decline in students that are going through this versus not, then we would need to kind of maybe give extra attention to that to get them where they
You could make
need.
the case that decline is normal in the new program.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we don't want to, so I've got COVID PTSD of like all the kids that like struggle with the downstream impact of that. Like I wouldn't want this, like we should get ahead of things if there's.
no, I agree, because when did we implement Eureka?
That was 2020 to 21 is the first.
Right, and so we're still, I mean, I just went back to your reports. You're still talking about the coaching related to implementing the math program. So, just to piggyback on your question mark too. I think that the discussion around it needs to be like, I don't know that you're gonna see the results on a curriculum within this
Yeah.
short period of time. So I'm just curious how the decision would be made.
One question I have is, do you know with the pilot groups whether has the feedback differed based on grade level? Or has it been
Slightly, and I think part of it is if you think about, this program is pretty rigorous, so if the expectations are raised at every grade level, then in those upper grades, not only are our 3rd and 4th graders still more impacted by COVID than the grades following them, they also have, so they've got those gaps from COVID, but they're also, it's a greater gap in expectation from kind of where
So this leads
we.
to my next question, which
Yeah.
is, how would do we know whether this program is good for students that might be considered below grade level? Because I'm assuming we have a high percentage of students that are below grade level. Are they going to be in trouble right off the bat?
So that's been a concern that we can see in the teacher feedback. And I think there's a couple of ways that I'm looking at that and trying to follow up. One is there are resources within Wit and Wisdom that are meant to help differentiate and scaffold for below grade level learners, but our teachers aren't finding those or not finding them effective. So that's a piece on us to make sure that we're getting the right pieces of the resources to use. The other factor is where we have a lot of identified students, their special ed instruction in literacy is not following the same resources. So right now, they're getting a different approach when they're pulled out and receiving that instruction in the special ed room versus the time that they're in the classroom, and sometimes that's really limited. So that's a piece that is in need of some coordination to make sure that we're meeting the needs of those students in particular. So yeah, something we're pretty aware of and trying to diagnose what is it that we can do that will help with that.
I have another question. In the survey, there's a couple of references to enjoying the books, but wishing there was enough for all children to have. Do we have a shortage in resources for the children to use in this?
No, it's what's intended by the program is that it's not everyone reading it at the same time. So again, that's one of those, like, let's look at this, and if we're seeing, okay, the way that it's intended to be taught is not working for the way that we're doing it, one of those should shift, and let's make it work.
So they're not supposed to all read it at the same time?
I have to follow up and understand it better myself, just to see exactly where that, because you're right, it comes up a couple of times.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that I'm right in my understanding of, okay, do we need more copies of the book? Is it that, because I know another theme that comes up is that students aren't reading enough. They don't have a text in their hand that they're reading. And that is one thing that we've seen in like our little sneak peek of the arts and letters, the revised resources coming out in the spring. We've also heard from Sarah Sharilla, who's the consultant who's been working with the Pembroke district and also working with us, is part of that is pacing. So right now, because this is new to our teachers, sometimes most of the lessons are taking 2 days, sometimes they take 3 days. There might be one component of that lesson where students are reading or rereading what was read out loud by the teacher.
So when you say it's taking 2, sometimes 3 days, is that meaning that that lesson should be contained within 1 day?
Yeah. And that again is something that we've heard from other schools. Is part of it is teachers learning something new, part of it is there's just so much. So part of what they're learning, and we saw the same thing with Eureka Math too, is the planning and preparation on the teacher end is narrowing down of these 17 things, which 3 or 4 are going to be most effective for my learners on this day. So again, that's something that we aren't necessarily surprised by, but it's important to be looking at. How are we getting kids doing more reading? How are we tightening up the pacing so that we're not dragging it out? And it's a balance of, is that unrealistic to expect teachers to do a full lesson in a day at this point? Probably yes. On the other hand, if we want to see if this is going to engage learners, we're going to need to help streamline things so that they are getting through those lessons a little bit quicker. And that's what we've heard. We've heard from Plymouth and from some other schools.
A couple more questions. One, just from my own understanding, because I do not work in education, but the foundations, did I hear that that is something we would keep because it's more foundational and then there's like the new program that builds off that? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So it's just different. It's focusing on different aspects of how kids learn to read and write.
That was kind of my question. Is there a reason? It sounds like this is addressing one side of the science, so reading, rote, and then you're using what you already have in place. Is there a reason why you didn't look at the programs that address both sides of the rope? So it'd be less like having to put them together?
Honestly, there's not a lot out there right now that really is meant to do everything. So I think there are some of the more traditional kind of basal programs that are trying to catch up with more of the science of reading in order to become the everything piece. But I mean, what we really looked at based on ed reports and the research that we had done, both and Wisdom and CKLA have the knowledge building focus, but not the foundational skills. They would need to be supplemented.
I only ask because we're going through the same thing, so we're using Benchmark Advanced, which is all of it together.
Yeah, yeah.
The option or recommendation 3 that you said, arts and letters, is that a different program?
It's a newer version of Wit and Wisdom.
Oh,
So it really looks like it's responding to the feedback they've gotten from teachers implementing it over the past few years, which is very similar to what we're seeing. So it's condensed so that the lessons are smaller. There's fewer kind of choices at each turn that a teacher is making. And the materials are a little bit more engaging for students. The manuals look a lot more teacher friendly. So it's kind of a, Wit and Wisdom 2.0 sort of idea. I don't know why they changed the name, but that's.
and then just one last question. You talked about trips to other schools or site visits or whatever. Have those already happened? I know there's some coming.
Right, yeah, there's both. So
Okay.
last school year, members of the literacy committee did some school visits. We went to Plymouth Elementary, we went to New Franklin School in Portsmouth. We were able to connect with Newfound, but not do a school visit. We just talked with their CKLA coach.
So I'm assuming our teachers heard other teachers say, we hated this, but we got through it.
Yeah, so this year we've had a group now go to Pembroke. First and third grade teachers got to see lessons at Pembroke. Tomorrow or Thursday we have second and fourth grade going to Pembroke, and then the kindergarten teachers in Canterbury are going next week. But in that first visit that happened a couple weeks ago, that was what teachers were seeing and hearing was, man, it's a process and it's really tough at first, and I'm now starting to see students writing more than they used to, and they're really grasping the concepts and discussion. So we did get that feedback from teachers that seeing teachers who are further ahead in the process implementing it was really valuable for them.
So last time that you presented to us, I asked the question of, what was the lifespan of a curriculum? And you had said historically it was 8 to 10 years, but in more recent times it runs on about a 3-year rotation. So in what you're describing is it's taking 1 to 3 years to really wrap their brains around this, this curriculum, to then in fairly short amount of time, there's going to be something else that we're going to then jump to. And so all of that time, that 1 to 3 years, when you're saying sometimes it's taking 3 days to get through a one day lesson, we're putting kids at a disadvantage. And so I'm kind of curious to hear the justification for not only looking for for the new curriculum, but to maintain this shorter cycle of curriculum that we identified last time you were here.
Yeah, I certainly hope it's not going to be something that we need to replace in 3 or 4 years. I think it's always good to be reflecting on how is this working and what can we do better, whether that's change in implementation of the resources we have, or are these resources not meeting our needs. And that's why right now we need to really be taking the teacher feedback seriously. And I think in this latter half of the pilot, doing what we can to adjust in how we support teachers so that we really can see, is this a resource that we can make work for us, and really give it the best shot that we can. So I don't anticipate adopting something just to turn around and change it in a couple of years. I don't anticipate that. I want to make sure that we're choosing the right resources for our learners and the supporting our teachers in implementing that so that it's more sustainable, a longer arc.
Well, so the last, we had Reading Street was the last equivalent to this.
Yep.
And that was, my kids were at Canterbury Elementary and they're 20 and 18, so that was a long time ago. And then math, prior to Eureka, we had everyday math. Or was there something in between?
There's math and focus.
Oh, math and focus. I remember math and focus, yeah, okay. I'm just saying, it doesn't appear that we're changing every 3 to 4 years.
No, and I would say both of these shifts are more fundamental in terms of an instructional approach.
Right.
So changing from math and focus that had a procedural focus to Eureka, which was more about understanding math concepts. The parallel is Reading Street was a basal program, and the research that has been more prevalent recently is showing us the need to shift towards a more knowledge building approach.
What are we doing to, if you're identifying a need that I'm gonna say the interventions for special education in particular aren't aligned with our programming, how are we aligning them? Because that's a significant problem.
Yeah.
I'm using significant, but I think it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's an area that we are just starting to kind of dig into. I think it's just going to take a lot of collaboration. To this point, we had a special education case manager on the literacy committee last year, but where special ed has been using CKLA, the core knowledge resources. So again, it's a similar approach, but it's not aligned in terms of the content. So they're reading about something completely different when they're in special ed classroom versus in the regular classroom.
But the concept's aligned. I'm more concerned about the concept.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
it should be both. I don't know enough.
Same. I think we just need to get more on the same page and collaborate with folks from special ed who haven't necessarily been part of the pilot process. And they've asked, we've had case managers and teachers saying, what should I know about this and how can we be helping? So that's where we're delving into next.
No, I think that's important that your tier 1 and your tier 2 and your tier 3 are somewhat cohesive. Otherwise it gets tricky for those kids in particular. You try to feed back and forth between two places.
Yeah. Other questions?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And so you'll be back when we have the statewide results?
Yes, so these are in the moment. Here's what I've got for you. We'll get more updates as the pilot continues and if the moment gets something more from status.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, board member reports. Alice.
Last month, I actually had the opportunity to go to the New Hampshire School Board's delegates assembly, and there were not as many fireworks as I was promised, Randy. Yeah, but.
But you loved it.
I did, I
enjoyed
enjoyed it, and the most interesting part for me actually was the School Board of Distinction presentation from Jaffrey Ringe. They are very, very similar in size to Shaker Regional. They're also a 2-town school district, and they had some really, really great points that they had made about like the growth of their district and how they sort of did some things to cut budgets and some really great ideas. So I can definitely go ahead and I thank you all probably got it in that New Hampshire School Boards Association email that we are all signed up for, but I can definitely send that around if you have any interest in looking at it or maybe missed it. But it was definitely an interesting thing to go to.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are there parts of that presentation that we should be talking about rather than just dropping it and it doesn't go anywhere?
I think that there are definitely some things that they did. I know that I have brought up a couple of them in the budget talks. Like they have implemented a daycare solely for their teachers, and that helps with bringing people in and keeping them there. They are also willing to take a slightly lower salary because they can have their young children on site. There are definitely things in there that I think maybe are things that we could or should look at. Because it does sort of speak to the size of the districts as well. One of the things that they did was they also more of like it's not exactly the way that we are set up because their middle school and their high school are on the same campus, so it's not exactly the same, but they did, they basically sort of brought the middle school and the high school together. They, combined, or the colors became the same. They called them, the middle high school. And it made it a little bit more cohesive, and they talked about sharing teaching responsibilities too, so that teachers could actually be moved from one school to the other. And it helped out with, when there are teachers who are out, they could share resources that way. It was a very interesting, that's something that I thought we might be able to do, but it's not exactly the same because we're not really built exactly the same, but just some things that we could sort of look at there.
Were they one of the schools that, the name's jumping out at me, I maybe misremembering, that used some of the new legislation for the tax cap, that they were able to modify it when needed? Okay.
So it looks like for those of us that it was sent out by the Hampshire School Boards Association on October 23rd. It says final 2024 delegate assembly documents and presentations linked at the bottom.
Were they willing to be a resource? And I'm curious how long things and kind of I haven't looked at this presentation, but
Yes.
how long and how do we set things up so that it's
The woman who presented, her name was Lisa Wiley, and she had indicated, so she had only been on the board for 2 years, but this had started, I believe, in 2017 when they got a new superintendent. The superintendent sort of came to them with some goals and things like that, and they said, okay, what do we need to do to meet these goals? And they've been progressively sort of implementing things to achieve them, and they've obviously done a very good job.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I'm seeing in this that are very similar to ours. Do you recall what they did with their communications?
For their communications, they have a quarterly newsletter, print newsletter that goes out to all of the homes in each town. Sort of, I don't know if Belmont has a similar thing, but for my Canterbury folks, we have the Canterbury newsletter that goes out just from our post office, and it literally goes into every single mailbox in Canterbury. They have a quarterly one that just goes out. It is a communication so that it reaches every single taxpayer in the district, and they can be aware of what's happening in the district. You don't have to have a child in the schools. You're made aware because this shows right up in the mailbox.
Do you remember if they had a full-time position for that?
They had a full-time position for 1 year. So they hired someone on for their communications for 1 year, and then they built out a subcommittee.
I'm excited to read more about it. Thank you. I don't have any updates.
Just some sports stuff. So I guess it might have been before the last meeting. So, just kiddo involvement.
I was able to go to FBLA holiday fair, which is always, it's all student run, well, student but
So speaking of that, is there any way that any board member could get in on the micro coming to the Laconia, the Hoyt Hewitt Center?
I don't know what you're referring to.
So Mike Rowe, he's the host of Dirty Jobs and has his.
Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
I was thinking Mike Rowe.
Yeah, me too. M-I-C-R-O, yeah.
I'm like, Micro?
Mike Rowe, sorry.
Class.
Me too.
What's that?
I thought it was like a class.
I'm like, you want to take a
Microeconomics.
class? Okay, sorry. Mike Rowe, what are you?
I was just kind of curious if we would be able to, if there's any chance that we could attend that.
They're bringing, I believe it's called Bringing Back the Trades, right?
Yeah.
Or Trade-a-Palooza.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's gonna be at NHTI, I don't know, either on the front end or the tail end of.
So I don't know if he's actually gonna be there or if there's gonna be like a live stream of him.
It's gonna be in
there.
Concord and then we're gonna live stream it to Laconia.
Okay.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we pre-purchased tickets. I can talk to Polly Ingram, our school to career coordinator, to see kind of where that stands, but at the very least, I can put you in contact with the person who might have tickets.
Okay.
I don't know how, because I think the deadline closed, but I don't know if they still have access
Yeah,
to it.
I'd heard it on the radio a couple of times and it slipped my mind and, you know, with, position that I'm in with building and inspection, I thought it might be kind of neat to
We do have a
get them
group.
to that.
We do have a group of students going.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Permission to travel, girls basketball.
I think City girls basketball team, girls varsity basketball team is looking to travel to Springfield, Massachusetts this coming Saturday. It's out of state.
Is this for our student bus? They talked about a bus for our student?
That's my understanding.
And it's coming to us because it's out of state.
Yes. And it's outside of regular season, more specifically, which is what our policy is. If it was in season and they were traveling, it wouldn't be coming to the board, but it's out of season.
It's out of season?
Basketball hasn't started
Season
yet.
has not started
I
yet.
like the week.
It's this Saturday.
This is up for action.
Yes.
Motion to approve the girls' basketball trip to the Basketball Hall of Fame on November 16th.
Second.
Discussion?
No liability concerns or anything like that?
No.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay, in your packet, someone want to orient us to?
Yeah, so the, in your packet, you have the average class size for courses at Belmont High School. These are all the courses that are offered in the program of studies. And I want to emphasize the word average class size, because you might see some of these smaller class sizes. There might be multiple blocks that this course is being held. That's, you could have, let me see, say for example, robotics, for example, there's average class size of 8, but I believe there's 2 blocks that total 16 students. So each block has 8 students. So I just want to emphasize the fact that this is an average. This isn't all blocks for every course. So we work with the school counseling department to put together an average class size for all those courses.
So, I don't know if this is a request that I had made or multiple board members have made, and I'm sure I butchered the request. I also think it'd be helpful to know how many blocks we're talking about, because that makes it a big difference. Because I had that question when I'm reading it, going, like, use robotics as an example. I think there's 8. Is that 1 class of 8? Is that 2 classes of 16 students? Is that 4 classes of 32 students? I have no idea how many blocks we offer of classes.
So,
Can I step in? Because looking at this more closely, I actually think that there are some errors with some of these numbers. I think some of, like, when you go into Alma and you look at course rosters, it doesn't automatically show you the rosters for the entire year. I think that some of these numbers were only based on semester 1 enrollments, and they didn't take semester 2 specific enrollments into play. Like one of the examples I saw was Algebra 1B with an average of 9 students. Semester 2 has classes of 20, 22, and 24, because those are usually, you take Algebra 1A and then you move on to Algebra 1B. We run some Algebra 1B sections in the fall because, like, if a kid didn't pass it previous year, they need to pass that before they move on to the next step of math. So I think...
So what we could do for the board, if you're interested, is we'll print out every course in the high school that's offered throughout the entire year and the enrollment numbers for those courses, give you the details that you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd asked for, especially moving into the budget work, was that especially we were looking for what classes were running in the fall, and what numbers were currently in them, and then what were the projected numbers for spring classes.
If the question was for fall classes, I think these are more accurate numbers.
Yes.
So I wasn't here for the request, so I'm sorry about that.
I guess I'm going to use an extreme example here, but if we were offering a class in, say, the fall and the spring or whatever, where one class is 2 and one class is 20, the average is, 11 or whatever. But I would want to know how many classes are we running that are really small where maybe we could offer something different, or we could rearrange schedules or what. Like, I've seen this personally where I understand how difficult block scheduling is for students to get, I have an open period, but my only options are this and this. I've lived that. I understand that, but I guess I just want to see, the variance between the classes more than the average number.
There's a tremendous amount of complexity putting a master schedule together, especially when you are a school that has CTE programs that you send to, or you're a small enough school where you have what we kind of refer to as singletons. We have one class, one teacher for that. There isn't a whole department. So you have to hard schedule some of those, and then it comes into play, like, you don't want to put all of your high-level math classes in the same block as you have all of these, because then they can't pick some of the arts that they want to pursue, but they also want to do this. They want, so we utilize Alma. Alma actually has a program within it that you plug student requests into, and it kind of calculates and reformulates. We don't just plug them in and spit it out. We do it over and over and over again to try to, finagle that. Sometimes you're going to have one section or one class of students in one semester or the other that looks totally like it's a 24, it's totally maxed out, and all the other ones are 9 or 10 or 11 or something like that. You have to look at it in context, and that whole grid, that master schedule, and all the students and the requests, and we try to honor as many student requests as possible. Students can't, if they're on the first Hewitt run, they can't have classes these blocks. If they're the second Hewitt run, they can't have classes these blocks. Third, they can't have classes that block. So you're going to see some weird numbers, and it's not necessarily just because there are fewer kids taking that class. It's because they have to take it block 1 because they're out of the building block 4 for a variety of reasons. So it's just, I'm 100% on board with providing whatever numbers you want to see. I would also just ask that, we have an opportunity to put those in context for you, because the raw numbers are misleading.
Right, so is there any chance that, say, by Friday, we could get an email that takes, advanced math, and it says, fall of 24, there's 2 sections, and here's the number of students in each section, and then it just works its way down. Is that possible?
I think it's possible. If we could have toward the beginning of next week, I can provide that. Just a little bit more time to, if we're going section by section of every course that we're offering, and, you know, with a little bit
Is this
of.
just for fall, or you, what are we trying to solve?
I need to understand the purpose of the request to tie it to the budget. So we can provide you whatever information you want. I'm going back to Bob's point of the budget committee. What's the action item on the budget for the request?
I personally do not believe I have budget action. I just want to know what we're offering and what the numbers are.
Okay. That's easy enough. I'm just trying to figure out
I
the
think
time
what
of
had
the
come
budget.
up is looking at the sections that are running, the number of students that are in those sections in any given semester would give us a reasonable, idea of whether or not our resources are being allocated appropriately. I think that's what people were requesting this information for a while now.
I guess for me, I don't know, first of all, there's also fluctuations, just knowing the way this works. So if we, like, calculus honors, I'm sure is one class,
Yes.
right? So then do we decide there's 4 kids in that class so we don't offer it? Like, I just want to know, and I don't, we can get all we want, I just don't know what we're trying to.
And there was a reference in some of our literature, I think it was the program of studies that alludes to a particular minimum number of students, but we didn't want to put a specific number to it, because if we can offer it, we would like to be able to offer it. Like there will be, particularly some of those advanced courses, the numbers of students who are populating it it's going to be smaller.
Right. Oh yeah, the more advanced course there is, I mean, just through natural attrition.
Yeah, at least to some degree.
Students.
Yeah.
All of these classes are in-person classes offered here within the school.
Yep.
I recently met some students at Merrimack Valley who've been taking VLAX classes when they weren't able to offer the classes that they wanted. Some of them do it in study halls and other ones do it on their own time.
Yeah.
I thought that was a creative solution.
We do that.
We do that.
Yeah. So we've got 2 kind of general guidelines if a student comes to our counseling department and is asking about taking a VLAX class. If we offer it in the building and we can get it into your schedule, we want you taking it with us. But if one or the other doesn't match up, then we're more flexible with that. And what we do is we usually schedule in academic support center into the student schedule. So it doesn't say VLAX on their schedule, it says academic support center. But our school counseling department will monitor a student's progress in their VLAX class. Everything that goes onto our transcript from VLAX has to be approved by our counseling department. We've had some folks just jump on and try to sign up for a whole lot of things, and it didn't even match up with graduation requirements that they thought. So we really try to put a process to it. But we get flexible too. We've got kids taking classes that we don't offer in the building, and it will end up on their transcript.
They can also take it at like Lakes Region.
Yep,
and
early college
somewhere else
classes. Yeah.
And get it on, not running start, but.
They also have dual credit options, so they're getting credit here on their transcript as well as college credit.
Does that answer the request? What you were asking?
I just want a clarification on the tie to the budget, but providing the class sizes for every course that's offered, every block that's offered, that's a fairly easy poll that we can provide to the board, so you have that information.
Realizing that there's a story in a lot of cases.
Yep.
Right.
And if you have a question, I would appreciate an opportunity, whether it's myself or a school counselor or somebody who's worked on that process, to have an opportunity to speak to it.
So are you emailing that to us or giving it to us? Or?
Well, I prefer
Bless you.
it be in a regular scheduled board meeting where I could have Mr. Finch and potentially Ms. Canary come to answer questions about it. So, but as for Mark's request for Friday, our budget work session is Tuesday, so we wouldn't even be discussing that list next Tuesday.
Unless you see it tied to the budget?
I mean, it could be. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and advocate for, for looking at, at this, geez, AP Studio Art, there's only one kid, we shouldn't run it. But I don't think we can we should just, completely gloss over our current current staffing without knowing class sizes for the different sections of what's being offered.
And that is a prime example that I would ask for context to be provided, because AP Studio Art is taught block 1 concurrently with another class because Mr. Silly wants to offer it. So while there's only one student signed up for that, he has more than that in his classroom. So he's got 2 classes that he's teaching concurrently in order to offer those classes. So it's, again, that's an example. The raw numbers don't tell the story.
And I lived that exact situation in teaching of various different tech ed classes. I would have to run sections concurrently as well. So
Yeah.
I get it.
So I guess the question becomes, the request, are you saying you need that for Tuesday the 19th?
No, I don't think we need it.
Okay, I'm just saying for,
Yeah.
because that's what you were saying.
Yeah, it's just asking the time frame.
Yeah, I mean, when I said by Friday it'd be in an email and we can just start looking at it.
Yeah, I prefer to put it in a
That's
regular
fine.
scheduled board packet.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I can ask Mr. Finch and Ms. Kamara to be here to answer questions at a regular school board meeting.
Would you want off-campus, like the Hewitt numbers as well for programs?
May as well.
They're going to provide everything.
Sure. That's great. Anything else with class size? Okay. Emergency superintendent succession.
Okay, you can see that every year it brings to the board as information if something was to happen to me that I wasn't able to perform the role and responsibilities of superintendent. Next in line is Debbie Thompson, and second in line is Aaron Pope. Just for information. It's a requirement or policy to bring it to you every year.
Any questions? Strategic direction update.
And so we have been working to really move forward with the strategic planning process. As of tomorrow, 9 a.m., the survey is going to go out to all staff. We're also going to get that out to parents, families, community members. We're shooting for tomorrow as well. And all students in grades 4 through 12 will be getting their survey on Monday. And we're allotting time during the school day to take a 7 to 10 minute survey for our students to get their feedback. And then that was all, those questions were all vetted through what is known as the District Leader Committee. Randy sat on that as well for a few of the meetings. That was our district support team, which was a group of administrators as well as teacher representatives from each building, the same leadership model we've had in place for years. The next step of the process is convening a strategic planning committee to look at all of the results as part of what's known as phase 1 and really just analyze those results and develop a plan moving forward as to how we're going to develop the final plan and what the priorities are for that final plan. That committee is going to be meeting on December 7th, which is a Saturday, from 9 to 3 o'clock at Belmont High School. The committee is going to include the district leadership group that's been involved from the beginning, as well as I need at least 1 or 2 more school board representatives to be on that committee. The commitment is December 7th, 6 hours, and then there's another meeting in February and another meeting in May. That's the commitment for the strategic planning committee, so it's 3 meetings. I know, Randy, I'm hoping that you're going to continue to.
We can talk about that.
All right, but regardless, I'd like to see 2 or 3, no more than 3 board members on the committee. And then I'm going to send something out to families as well as get it to the community, soliciting people that might want to be on that committee. And we're looking at 5 to 10 more people, not to go over 25 as a total committee. And the way that we'll do that is people can send me, or respond to my email that goes out, or respond to something that goes out in the town email list, and then people will be randomly selected to be on that committee. So it's not hand picking, just randomly selecting those people that are interested if there's more than 10.
And the February and May date's been chosen, I don't know.
Not yet, to be determined. I would anticipate they'd be on Saturdays as well, because it's a 6-hour time frame. So that's the process. Surveys are going out, starting tomorrow. And then, once those results come back, that committee's gonna meet on the 7th to really start moving that process forward.
Are you going on the 7th?
Yes.
What? 2 more people.
I might be interested, but I have to confirm the date first.
I was gonna say, I could be interested, but December 7th might be.
Okay.
Just let me know. This is phase 1, there's 2 more phases, so could always just keep you in the loop as well, if you want to be part of that. By all means. Great.
Will we know when the extra 2 dates are before?
No,
or- so the committee's gonna be formed and then establish those other 2 dates?
Yeah, absolutely.
February's rough, May would be easy.
So that's the process at this point. Really looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting the feedback.
So right now, Randy, right, is the only confirmed person.
How long's the feedback? How long for the survey?
It's open for until November 22nd, so 10 days. We'll get all the students captured, well, majority of them captured on Monday, since we're allotting school time for it. During targeted learning time, as well as advisory at the middle school, and then within the classes at the elementary school. So the process is moving forward. Really pleased with how the process has been moving forward, and really pleased with working with Isobar Public Sector, the organization that we hired to help facilitate it. It's been great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Robotics. Robotics.
You want me to come up?
Sure.
Okay.
Come on up. How we want to structure the discussion, but we had asked, I knew what we asked, some budget numbers.
Cost analysis.
Cost analysis.
I did not have time to email it out. So what I have here, this first report, is 3 different proposals with numbers. Then if you want to pass that around. This second report, I do apologize for the small print. I do have one that's printed bigger. The way I came up with some of the numbers in this proposal is I took the October survey that I did for all the world coaches, and I narrowed it down to what is reflected the best with VHS robotics, with me head roughing at the high school. So there were 5 responses out of the 53 responses that closely matched VHS. And so based on the average results of those 5 responses, that's how I kind of figured out some of the numbers. With the proposal, there's 3 of them. The very first proposal, Solution A, is based on October 22nd school board meeting, where there was discussion of changing the robotics coach position from AA to Category B, creating a Category B at 0.15. And then it's also set up, because there was also discussion of doing a 3-season sport, 3-season coach position. So this reflects fall, winter, and spring. So you can see The total district cost is in green. Sorry, my printer doesn't print yellow anymore, so it's in blue. And then what's in red is the difference. So if you look at the top of the report, over on the right side, what is currently being paid for the robotics advisors is a total of $3,229. This would be for the 25-26 salary schedule, if I've read it right. If I haven't read it right, please let me know and I've got the Excel sheet up and I can.
And this doesn't include fixed cost items, correct? FICA, workers' comp, retirement if they're current employees. This is
Correct.
just salary.
Correct. This
Okay.
is just the percentage and then just the, I guess it would be the gross salary overall. Yeah, I don't know too much about the other stuff. And then proposal solution B. So I sent out an email on September 6th. It was late at night on that Friday. But I had a couple of proposals of restructuring the robotics programs. I know that there was concern at the last school board meeting that when I mentioned director position, I didn't want anybody to think that it's like a full-time position. It would be a stipend position. One of the biggest challenges, and one of the reasons why I don't like the very first solution, solution A, is because you can pay me more, which I won't complain about, but that does not take care of the workload. Because I cannot do this workload after this season, and I will not do this workload after this season. I'm not threatening to quit. I want to keep doing this, but we need help. I have other jobs. This is not my only job, and I'm putting in full-time hours for this. Not to mention that since the last school board meeting, we've won 5 more awards from 3 different tournaments. We have an invite to nationals again, and I just received another email today for another nationals invite, but I don't know if that's like a duplicate or if that's a new team. So we have a nationals trip that we could be planning. So if we had a director that could kind of take over the trip planning and the budgeting and the social media, that would be great. That is solution B. If the school board and the district doesn't think that that's a good solution, then that's where solution C comes in the report. And that solution is you take the tasks that are being done right now and you divide them into small little coordinator sections. So if we have a nationals trip, then you would assign a coordinator to handle that. If we had a world's trip, you would assign a coordinator to that. We also do what I would like to do in addition to what we already do is be able to host a scrimmage. That takes more planning and more time than I have. I know I would love to do some summer camps and get some kids in because these are also fundraising opportunities for the robotics program. I didn't want to overcomplicate things, so I hope that that is detailed enough. 3 different options. I am open to other options if if there's another solution that anyone could come up with. I'm open to anything.
We need to digest this.
So first of all, thank you for putting this all together.
Absolutely.
You did this all on your own. You did the research on your own. You went through and looked at the Appendix B stipend stuff on your own.
Right, and I'm still in the process because there's not enough time in the day to do it all with all the back-to-back tournaments that we've had. I'm still in the process of putting together all the funding and financial stuff that we spent last season, the out-of-pocket expenses, the how much went to the signature event in Hershey, Pennsylvania, how much was Worlds. I'm still going through all my emails and trying to do that, but I've not had a chance to finalize that. I was hoping to have that ready so that everybody could see, you know, here's all the budgetary information, here's how much money we spend in the season, here's, because it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to do what we're doing.
So does it not, it's not a student activity account on top of a?
There is a student activity account because they do fundraising for robotics.
Right.
Yeah, we have 3 accounts, for each, so 3 for high school, 3 for middle school, and it's the general fund, it is the DOE technology grant, and then the student activities account. So when we have sponsorships come in, those go in the student activities account.
So I know, I mean, you referenced last time burnout, and I got it. I completely understood what, and you just said tonight that you can't continue in the capacity that you're serving in. So what
I
what
can't
is
continue
yeah,
at this
yeah,
level.
what does your role look like moving forward next school year?
Maybe this level. But the issue is it requires too much time. We have 17 active students, and that's, I think, 4 or 5 more active than last season. We have 5 teams. And that's just high school. I'm doing double duty with IQ. The goal is for like next season, Mr. Frand can have his own assistant. So if we had, and I also understand assistant coach could be an issue, which is why I called that position an advisor position. So BHS advisor and a BMS advisor, robotics advisor for the assistant. If we had more people that can help, then that divides the workload, and then we can keep going at this with multiple people. We can't keep going at this with one person or 1 1/4 person. We do have a couple of other volunteers. Mr. DeHaze is still volunteering when time allows for him to volunteer. Alex is he's an alumni, he's been our coding coach, and he's working full-time and going to school full-time this semester. So his volunteerism has been less than what it was last season. So it's just a lot of work for one person. And if it could be subdivided into 2 or 3 different people, or even, like I said, giving it to a director who can oversee it and take off with it. Kind of don't want to beat the director and rather.
Right. So what? Assuming that you would not fill that director role, do you have any ideas to toss out on the table or something like that? Would there be someone in the building that you know of that would be able to fit that role? I mean, my first thought was could one of the administrators, carry that director piece?
One of the principal or assistant principal?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud.
So based on what I have seen with what Amira does above and beyond just coaching, I would be pretty hard pressed to say like an administrator during that's why I think it's a stipend position. It's a huge effort. As she noted, it includes media, graphic design, grants, financials, trip planning. Like, I think that would be hard for an administrator to do in addition to all their regular duties.
And Amira had given us a very detailed job description. Yeah, and then I'm saying Appendix B, which I think it got forwarded out in our board packet, but she outlined the responsibilities and then it said if a director position came into play, these were the things that would come off the head coach. So there's really a basis I'm just saying there's a basis for the job descriptions if we went that route.
Like, I will continue coaching. I did promise some of the students that I would continue coaching next year. I'm definitely going to finish up this year. My son, Odin, this is his 6th season doing V5 robotics. He has expressed interest in coaching next year. So he might still be a little bit young. He could start out as an assistant, just like Alex did. And in a couple of years, he could potentially take over. He knows more about robotics than any of us put together. He can tell you exactly what bin and what tray a part is if you're looking for it. He could fit this job in the future. There are others that could potentially fit a job. We could get a parent, any parent that could help with trip planning. So a parent could take over a coordinator position. The events, to run the events, there's certifications that you have to do to run an event now. So the running our bot bash is a lot more intense than hosting a scrimmage or hosting a workshop. So but all of these coordinator and director things, this is what I'm doing right now on top of coaching. 2 programs. And
Go ahead. Continue. I can ask you that.
I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
But it's okay.
I know you had said that you're not, solution A was perhaps not your favorite. I completely understand that. I do just have, with position or solution C, there's 13 new positions added. How confident are you that we could fill those?
Pretty confident, because you could give one of those coordinator positions to a parent. So if there is a parent who has a child that qualifies for a world trip and we're planning a world trip, then that parent can take over planning that. So they can use a travel agency, they can do, host the parent meetings. So these are things that could be taken over by parents. The financial aspect might be a little more tedious, but we can also train parents to run an event too.
Will you provide that training?
Yes.
We would have to post all of these, correct? I mean, if we, so just so, I'm sure you know this, but we couldn't just, we'd have to post them all and then fill them all.
Right.
So, I'm not saying.
That's my only concern with solution C. That's a lot of positions to put out there.
Yeah, the lesser of all the evils that I like the most is solution B. But like I said, I'm open to other ideas and suggestions. Maybe there are things that the school board can suggest that maybe I didn't think about.
Just for my own clarification, BES and CES does not currently have robotics, is that correct? So would it have to go through a charter before, and then it would?
The charters have been filled out. They've already been sent to the building administrators for the elementary schools. We missed the deadline for this year. So I did include those positions in this budget so that it's not a surprise next year. So the school board doesn't think, oh God, she's coming back again asking for more, now what? Here's what we're trying to plan. So the goal is to have the charter established soon, and then have it established hopefully by the next school year, and then get these positions established for that after the charter has been, I think it's a full year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, by September, and then it's the following September.
So this is like a lot, it's looking down the line of what it would be.
Yes, yes.
Just to give the board a historical perspective, years ago, we had Destination Imagination in all 4 of our buildings, and that got, the numbers really increased for that specific organization and that grouping, and the board at that time opted to put in the operating budget a director position that was $4,000 to oversee the 4 buildings, just to give the board a perspective of what we've done in the past for something that might have gotten larger than we had anticipated.
And this was how many years ago?
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
pre-me.
It was, yeah.
1920.
You meant 2019.
2019.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
I knew it
The
was
school year,
Oh.
1920.
okay.
1920 school year, not the year 1920.
So in proposed solution B, that director would oversee all of the programs.
Yes. And then each program would have, the high school and the middle school would have the head coach and the assistant/advisor position. And then the elementary schools, starting the elementary schools, it would be strictly as a non-competition to start out, to see what the interest is. So it would just be like a regular club with a regular advisor. It would not be, no, the middle school would donate the supplies to it. So I've already had a meeting with the principals to discuss the details of that. It's just moving forward with the charter.
So maintaining these numbers, would there be equipment needed at the middle school? I mean, obviously, middle school is recycling down to the elementary schools. I mean, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I mean, I brought 4 kids into the middle school. Does that need to be? Would that be just an operational thing, or because I know the equipment wears out, motors die, sensors quit, kids break stuff.
We have old kits that can be donated so that we can purchase new kits. So yes, there's older equipment that we can donate, kind of like what we've been doing for the robotics class at the high school. So there is stuff that we can donate so that we can replace with the newest generation of kits available for the competitive teams. So, and with middle school, with the grant, so the middle school received $15,000 grant, DOE grant. It is harder for IQ to spend that money than it is V5, because IQ costs a fraction of what V5 costs. V5 could very easily spend 15 grand on 3 robots. But with IQ, so there's room in that grant to be able to purchase new kits for the classroom, for the competition in that classroom, and then donate the rest to the elementary schools.
So I have just 2 things. One, this is the second year of the grant. We don't know if that's going to continue.
Right.
And all of the equipment is being purchased and all the kits come out of the grant. There's really no money in the budget or in this proposal for that. The second question I had was, right now we use a portion of the grant to help pay for stipends. Are you assuming that the grant would continue to pay stipends in addition to what this proposal is?
Yes, if we continue to receive the grant.
So they would
that's
still get the
big-
money from 2 places.
Right,
So it's like 2 stipends.
right.
Are you talking about like,
No.
we just, so like the VHS robotics head coach, 6,920, and then like an additional money from the grant, or would that grant be part of that 6,920?
The DOE technology grant has a $2,000 stipend in it.
Maximum. You don't have to
Maximum.
charge anything.
Oh, really? Oh,
Correct. You don't have to pay a stipend.
oh,
It's just a maximum you can pay.
oh. Okay. So we wouldn't have to take that So with like V5, we could apply that 2,000 for more supplies? Okay.
There's a restriction on transportation, there's a
Right.
maximum on transportation, a maximum on salary, but it's not required that you pay it out of there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I thought it was standard. The stipend was standard. Okay.
It's just the maximum.
This year, I am not splitting the stipend with Mr. Friend for IQ, so whatever stipend is set up for the middle school, he deserves it, because it's,
There's a lot of kids.
yeah, he has a lot of kids.
But again, I don't know when they're gonna come out with information on the grant.
So there's one thing that concerns me about Solution B.
Okay.
Knowing what I know about these kids in robotics, they're choosing, like they're advocating for themselves to have hours for the summer, on holidays, on weekends. Like they are putting in a good amount of time to do this.
Yes.
So by moving all the administrative stuff to the robotics director, this still is only, would be 6,920 for the entire year.
Yeah.
So I know that there is a head coach and an advisor, but is that still sustainable? Those hours don't change. I know a lot of the stress changes by doing that, a lot of the administrative, but someone still has to be in the building with those kids. That's my concern.
It does relieve the current workload, because the director takes over the stuff that the coach is doing when the coach is not at the school with the kids. But the coach still does stuff with the kids. So there's still going to be a lot of hours for the coach at the school. It's I wanted to be careful how I brought the numbers, because I didn't want to bring numbers so high that were unrealistic, that would not be, it would be too much. Like, I don't know what is considered enough in a stipend. I really don't. I'm not good at this.
Well, I also think, I'll just, like, any of the sports, if we want to equate it to that, there are, a lot of kids would want to practice basketball more, and they want to practice every day, and but the coach has to set some for lack of a better way, like, a coach doesn't have to give up their holiday just because I'm just saying, like,
Right, no,
that's-
I understand what you're saying,
The
but
difference is they can go to the Sergeant Park and still play basketball.
Hockey
and
players
practice.
can't go to,
That's true.
Right, and that's true, but you
Clear
could
up
also get together at someone's house and, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I get it, but I think we have to, like, what's the parameter? 'Cause-
so just to point out though, like their first competition was in September, their last one will be in April. So it spanned longer than, so it's tricky. I think it's a complex situation we're in.
And it changes every year, like the signature events. Last year it was in December, this year it was in September. The schedule, the tournaments change, the teams change, the demand changes. For us to compete at the level that we're competing at, and to be this elite, students put in 15 to 20 hours towards robotics every week in order to make it to Worlds. That's what other World teams are doing. So I make it a point to offer the kids, right now I offer the kids at least a minimum of 10 hours a week, and we do workshops. So for example, we were supposed to have a 6th back-to-back tournament in North Andover, Massachusetts on the 23rd. Luckily, the teams withdrew from that, so I turned it into a full-day workshop. So instead of going to a tournament that we had already planned for to take out that part of my day, we're now doing we're now doing a workshop. So I am taking time off for the holidays, because I know a lot of kids do. But like Veterans Day, on Monday, we had a full day workshop, because that's what the kids wanted. And I had parents asking me, is my kid ready to come home? No, they want to keep working. So we have kids that want to keep working. So we can, like when we can't be there, like I offer to send kids home with a kit and the robot, and they can work on it at home. But lots of times the kids prefer the workspace that we have, because it's just more efficient with their time. Less distractions at home, more efficient with their time. So I don't mind opening up stuff like that. It's a lot of hours. But I want our kids to be successful.
Again, I completely understand the position you're in. I lived it less time than you have.
It's fun. Like I do enjoy it. I just don't enjoy all of it. But I enjoy a lot of it.
I guess I'm looking for, not to put anybody on the spot, but a little bit of a district leadership response and thought as well. Like we would for any big decisions. And if you don't even have one at this moment, I get that, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around what I'm reading and thinking, and I go both ways.
So I'll offer my opinion. There isn't anybody sitting around this table, including myself, that can justify the importance of this program. When you look at the numbers presented here, it comes back to the budget, and you're talking about potentially increasing the budget by approximately $24,000 for some of these proposals. I think that's a difficult conversation to have around the budget table if you're also talking about trying to reduce your budget. I also think that we haven't had these conversations about any of our other co-curricular programs that could be justified as well. So I think that if you're going to take a step forward, there's another option. Provide a director's stipend and advertise for that director position, just like we did with Destination Imagination. Whatever that stipend amount is, the board can decide what that is. Keep your coaching positions and take the Appendix B recommendation that was already presented to you with a committee that brought to you an increase in that coaching stipend. That could be an option, because I know Mary said multiple times, you're open to any options that are thrown out there. So a starting place could be get a director for the administrative roles, increase the two coaching stipends, and start there. I don't think you're looking at a significant budget impact on that. And it's right in line with something that we've done in the past. So that's, at a glance, that's my opinion.
Just to be clear, from my point of view, whatever we decide, I'm expecting that to be reduced on the budget somewhere to help offset the additional costs. This to me is not an addition to the budget. This is fitting it into what I already believe is more than I want.
I look at this with the success that the program has had, the attention that it has commanded to Shaker Regional School District, with the career opportunities that it provides students. I think we'd be fools not to support it.
So, I rarely ever bring my own personal stuff into these meetings. I take pride in that. But I am paying for my son's hockey uniform this year, because we do not pay for uniforms for our high school hockey program, because the budget's too high for that program. And I'm fine with that, I get it. But we pay for all kinds of things out of our own pocket. They have a, Debbie, you could probably correct me, but they have a boosters club that is a registered for whatever.
503C.
So in order to pay for the program to survive, and I think it's successful. It's going into its 21st year. So I would love for that program to be fully funded by the district. It's our program, not Guilford's. It's Shaker's, and we don't pay for that program. 21 years old, you do not pay to fully fund that program. We've increased that.
Does the booster coach cover the cost for the coach?
What's that?
Does the booster club cover the cost for the coach?
You get the stipend.
Sure, they get stipend.
The winter sports stipend, whatever.
That's in Appendix B.
So what the district pays is, I don't even know what itemized what the district pays, but I know they get a bill for ice time and all that. And the boosters pays for them to practice the game. And I would never advocate that hockey be fully funded because it's too expensive. There's only 15 kids, or 12 Shaker kids and 13 Guilford kids. So I want the program to be successful, but I don't know in my own head where that line is. Right now, my opinion is, wherever that line is, it comes out of the budget that we currently already have proposed. So I'm not looking to add to the budget.
So, if Amira was able to utilize parent volunteers to help out with some of the monitoring when the kids are there, she still has to let them in the building and close it up. So is there like something that we have that could approve people to get access to alleviate some of the pressure off her?
We're talking outside of regular school hours, which
So like I'm thinking about what you're saying is we increase the stipend, create the director, but that doesn't solve the problem is that there was additional people in here to help alleviate the hours.
so we don't tend to give access to volunteers, only employees, which includes coaches. So it would need to be an employee for us to give access to our buildings.
So that doesn't solve that problem.
Right.
This is me not knowing the answer to this, so like, I understand the signature event changed from December to September, but what's the, let me be clear. I'm not suggesting we not have kids travel to all these competitions. My question becomes, how many? Like, how do you set, like, at least for hockey, or for basketball, or for whatever, there's a season. And even if this is a full season, the season runs September to April, how many events would one expect? Not what we want or what's optimal, like what's, I don't even know if I'm asking the right question, but like, how many events would you have?
What we try to do, and there's no straight answer because it varies. It depends, because it's a student-centered program, it depends on what the teams want. So there are some teams that they're just now starting out, they don't have anything, they're just doing it for fun. And then we have other teams where they want to win, they want a triple crown, they want to win excellence, they want to go to Worlds. So what we do, we offer one signature event somewhere within driving range, one signature event per season, no more. And it's for returning students who are dedicated, who will have a working robot. So that was one reason why we had so many hours this summer, is because that event was like literally the second week of school. We have teams that they compete in anywhere from 4 tournaments in a season to 10 tournaments, including states. So it depends on the team needs. We look outside of region, we look in region, we look, like I said, within 2-hour driving typically. Those make for long days.
I'm trying, I feel like I have no guardrails. I don't know how else to, I mean, you're giving me a range, but I'm trying to equate it, and I have.
That is what is so challenging about robotics, is because it's a year-round program. It's a sport, but it doesn't fit a sport. It's a co-curricular, it doesn't fit a co-curricular. It's an educational setting, but yet it's not in a typical classroom. So it's its own weird entity, which is why they're like in this particular document that I did, in the responses, 3 of the 5 responses, they have directors that oversee their programs. I would love to be able to chat with some of these directors to get more ideas on what they do. And unfortunately, it was an anonymous survey.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's not a straightforward answer. Yeah. Well.
Anything else?
Just to piggyback on your question, I mean, that sounds like it is, if I'm on a team and if I want to work on my robot here at the high school 365 days of the year, you're going to do yeoman's work and open the school 365 days of the year. But I don't think that's fair to you. I know what you're doing is great for the kids and it's best for the kids, but and every program or sport or co-curricular or anything we have, there are some boundaries to, you're not coming in on Veterans Day. Sorry, like that. It is what it is. I don't want to tell any child no, but at one point, I think we do in every other phase of life.
From September through February is when kids want to do 20 to 30 hours a week. I had one kid who told me he would do 40 if he could. He would do Saturday and Sunday and go to school Monday through Friday. He lives and breathes this. Not my son, but he lives and breathes this. If we had an assistant coach or a coordinator or an employee of the school that could let the kids in and sit with the kids, because the kids need an adult to supervise them. So if we had an adult that could sit in on a Sunday and the kids want to be there on a Sunday, then I can be at home on a Sunday. So then it doesn't fall on me. But right now, it's all falling on me. And it is too much. But I don't want to take these opportunities away from these kids. We have such phenomenal kids. 5 trophies since last school board meeting. And a nationals invite, 2 of them. I want to keep giving these kids this opportunity.
Talk about parent volunteers that cannot access the school.
So like an
You
emergency.
can't make that a deal breaker, right? Like,
Well, no, but I was just saying, like, because her proposal had additional positions of people that would be able to help with this. So if we just went with the director and then increased the stipends for the 2, you still run into the issue that she needs additional help. And that's why I asked, like, is there a world where, parents could volunteers go through something to get approval to be allowed to do that so that she can stay home on Sunday.
Well, like right now, if there was a parent that wanted to bring their kid on a Sunday, or, and here's what I also do. If it's good for one team, if one team is allowed to do it, all the teams have to be allowed to do it. So the hours have to be available. There's no favoritism. I mean, you can ask Edgar, because Edgar's son is on my son's team. I don't show that team favoritism. Whatever they want, everybody has to have that equal opportunity. So if a parent like Edgar wanted to come in on a Sunday because other teams wanted to come in on a Sunday, especially before a tournament or before states or whatever it is, then I could go up there, let him in, and then he could sit with them, and then at the end of the day, I could go back and make sure everything is put away, cleaned up, and locked up.
And I'm gonna ask the baseball coach to let my kid on Sundays to hit batting practice, you know, like,
So I know Sundays keep coming up. I just want the board to know that we deny requests for the use of facilities anytime before noon on Sundays. That's our policy. So I know the Sundays keep coming up, but.
I think it's just an example.
Yeah, it's just an example. I just want the board to know that. And I do agree that there should be equal access. So the reason why we have only employees that have access to our facilities is because they are our employees. If we had a volunteer that wanted to come in and shoot hoops with the basketball team, we do not give them access to the ability to do that. So you would open it up for all volunteers that would have access to our building that would then be able to provide those opportunities. That's difficult. That would be very difficult to manage for our facilities in general. So this comes down to logistics and a management of our facilities. That's why we only have employees that access our buildings.
So what's the minimum payment you have to be considered an employee? $1? $10?
$10 statement.
Any other questions? I mean, I'm just saying, if you have, and put a limit on it, so you had 2 or 3 parents, say $10, then they could let them in, right? Because they're technically an employee. And stay with the kids.
We're just getting creative over here.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I mean, you just opened it right up at me.
I understand that. I'm just really thinking from an HR perspective.
Yeah, well, I understand, I just figured I had to throw it out there, because everybody was thinking it,
Yeah,
so,
Thank you, John.
yeah,
this slippery slope.
yes, that would be.
I don't know. The proposal Michael offered sounded pretty good, if we had numbers on it, see what, get the director, then the Appendix B, I don't even remember what it was.
Well, I think you could look at what Amir put together for what directors are getting paid. There was an average on there, wasn't it? So
I was talking about what Michelle and the first offer they had there.
Yeah, we didn't do the director.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because-
the first offer was basically from the discussion of the last school board.
Well, this was, Appendix B was suggesting BMS, it would be the 27, 68, 16, and the 69, 20. 0.40. Correct, Debbie?
Correct, plus fixed cost items.
Plus fixed cost items, which is
Is
like,
that additional?
Yes,
it's all your,
Oh.
it's your,
Mhm.
I thought that was taken out from the stipend amount.
Well, we have to
Oh.
also pay a share.
yeah, it's a,
Okay.
So that number's higher.
so maybe we can get that. And what does it say on here? Is this where you gave us the,
You need the big one?
let's see, for money? For a director.
It's in here at 10,000.
Oh, I didn't know if you asked what directors.
No, I asked, so one of the questions, or junior questions? Okay, it's on the first page. So, do you have an assistant coach helping you? How is your robotics program structured? So the second question on the first page. So 3 responses have a director coordinator, and then 2 responses run independent. So each program runs independent. So high school would be completely separate from middle school, so there would be no necessary cohesiveness across the board. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make it as cohesive as possible, because we want the transition. Right now, the way IQ was done is that there was not a good transition from IQ to V5. So when kids would jump into V5, they would be like, oh, we have to do a notebook. What's a notebook? What's the engineering design process? So we're trying to start younger with the kids so that, and get them used to some of the things to expect in V5 so that it's a smooth transition across the board.
But where did you get the $10,000? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Because I didn't,
No,
like, I
it's not.
didn't know if that would be reasonable. And it's the equivalent of 0.216%. And then, because if you look at all the coordinator positions, all 13 of those positions, I think that's 0.26. So I was trying to get under that, because I know it's a lot of money.
Yeah. So you didn't just pick it out. There was enough rationale behind it. Sorry, go ahead, Debbie. Good question.
But I'm just trying to see if there's a correlation between question 2, where it was 3 responses have a director coordinator, and the third up from the bottom, which was the average, was between $5,000 and $6,000. That wasn't necessarily the coordinators. That was just the coach.
Yeah, that was just how much does the coach spend. So I didn't ask the questions, how much does the director make?
Okay.
So I honestly don't know.
So out of curiosity, on a distribution of funds question, just for purposes of conversation, if, say, New Hampshire Ball Bearing said, hey, we want to fund the robotics program for Shaker Regional, and they say, hey, you know what, we're gonna give you $30,000 a year.
Mhm.
Could that money that comes into the district, could it be distributed with how it is presented here? Or is there some logistical problem?
That depends on
to
how
stop?
they say they want to do it.
Got it.
If they say we want to fund the high school robotics,
Yep.
then if they're just giving us a payment of X amount of dollars, here's $30,000 to fund the high school robotics, that would be up to the board how the board would want to do that.
Got it. Good.
So if like companies, let's say, I want to do 1,000, where does that money like currently, would it go?
So currently, if they do it to the high school robotics, it goes into the high school student activity fund, and they are allowed to, the high school student activity fund uses that to help offset the costs that the grant and the district don't cover.
But that wouldn't cover stipends?
No.
Yeah, so when I worked with Thornburg over in Winnisquam, we came up with something that was very, very detailed, because they were throwing a lot of money at the entire district. And they carved it right out and said, here's what's going to go to stipends, here's what's going to go to coaching, here's what's going to go to equipment. They were very, very detailed in how they wanted the money distributed.
Right, and we would clarify with them.
Yep, good.
Additional questions? Information?
I just want to say thank you for taking the time to put this together and come back yet again.
Appreciate all your work.
So is this up for action?
Well, we put it up for action because it was easier to, if people want additional information, then look at it next week, because it's.
I don't dare ask for additional information.
Well, right. Or
I will provide it.
Or if we wanted, as, like Sean, I'm thinking about you, so like next week, when we look at budget, what are we gonna, for you, like what, in order for you to vote on something, to add to the budget, what would we take away? Or I'm just using this as an example. So anyway, we can act on it tonight or not.
I think we have to have a conversation at a budget meeting before we can take any action.
But are we satisfied with the information that Amira has provided?
Yes.
We're not gonna make her come back next week.
Right. You said, I mean, we gotta digest some
Right.
stuff.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amira.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On the horizon. November 26th looks really light. So we could fix it.
That's why there's,
Yeah, we just need to figure out budget though, so I don't want to take that away right now.
So I have a couple agenda items. I don't know where we want to put them.
Okay?
One is not as time sensitive, but I did want to kind of follow up on Alice's comments about the Jeffrey Ringe stuff. And I feel like we should just set some time aside to talk about maybe the highlights and things that we might
Yeah.
want to think about more, especially with the strategic planning taking place as well. I don't want to lose sight of that. I don't want to jump the gun and say, we should implement this and this
Yeah.
without having strategic planning involved, but I feel like maybe it would be good for us to have that conversation around the same time. So that, and then secondly, I wrote down, this is more budget related, but I think Mark might have mentioned like full-time assistants, or like
Full-time sub?
full-time subs maybe. Like, are there personnel discussions we could have to help out with some of the concerns principals have had, but also, you know, they would have a budget impact one way or the other. So I'm not saying that should be its own agenda item, but maybe next time, like next week, when we talk about the budget, that's maybe a piece we should hit on.
yeah, so on that point, next Tuesday, we can bring you what the cost would be for full-time substitutes in the district, just so you have an understanding as to what that cost is
And
associated
it's not even
with it.
just budget though, because I'm not even sure it makes sense to do that. Like, I guess I'd want to have more of a more well-rounded discussion on the merits for and against it. Maybe it's not even worth the budget piece, but if we already have that information, it's quick.
I could just say, we could definitely use full-time substitutes.
Like, does full-time mean benefits? Does it not mean benefits?
Yeah.
Yes.
Full-time benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely an increased cost with any full-time employee versus a day rate.
Yeah.
But I also know from being in schools and being principal, if you had the ability to lean on this exact same person in the building, I would defend that that's money well spent.
There's definitely benefits to having a full-time substitute that's consistent with the district. When I was a principal, we had one, it was ideal, because the kids know the person, they know the teachers, they know the routine, and you can count on them to be there.
We've been creative and done like a 3-day-a-week and 2-day-a-week, so it was almost like a job share, so there was a permanent sub Monday, Tuesday, and a different one Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so there were no benefits involved.
Those are big.
Except if it's truly a job share, they do have to pay New Hampshire retirement system.
Right, but I mean, but they weren't offered a full package of benefits. Because it was the same two people that were in our building every single day.
Still there?
They're not anymore, one of the budget items that got.
So do it didn't work.
They're
Thank you,
still
Mary.
there every day, just different capacity.
Anything else, Sean?
So any idea where to have the Jaffrey Range School Board presentation discussion?
I was just proposing a lighter day somewhere. It didn't have to be right off the bat.
Before or after budget?
Budget's a priority, so my thought was, if it conflicts with any budget stuff, let's push it off until February or whatever, when things settle down. But I just know the strategic planning committee in December, you said February, maybe another one after that, so maybe even February's a sweet spot or something.
Yeah, okay.
At least we can put it on paper, and we can still
Yep.
figure out the date.
That's only one.
Maybe we can coordinate a field trip too.
Okay, enrollment report.
So you can see our enrollment numbers as of November 1st. District total is at 1,142 students. That is 2 fewer students than reported in October.
But still a good increase from where we were last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, is that due to ninth grade coming in larger than 4th grade going out, if I remember it correctly?
Okay. Volunteer list.
Make a motion to accept the volunteer list with the noted exceptions.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. So there are,
Go ahead for it.
Nope.
Nope, you're on a roll. Go for it.
1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 policies up for first reading, and then Alice is going to tell us the one that is we are proposing to remove, which is up for action.
Yeah, so GBAA is the sexual and other harassment employees. It's proposed to remove, Michael, it's been a minute since we talked about this, but I believe it's because it's covered elsewhere.
Yeah, so we put into place when there was new changes to Title IX law, federal changes to the law. Back in 2021, we established actually a more thorough policy. It's policy ACAB that replaces GBAA. We just didn't go through the process of removing GBAA when we put in policy ACAB.
What's the new policy?
The new policy is ACAB.
2021.
Yeah, it's titled Harassment and Sexual Harassment of School Employees.
So anything that's covered in this GBAA is covered in.
Yes, ACAB is much more thorough than what's covered in GBAA.
Well, isn't it the policies and procedures that's much more thorough?
Yes.
So it's not actually the
Rules,
policy
yep.
itself, but the rules and procedures are far, far more in-depth than.
It's all based on the changes to the regulations, particularly around investigation. And School Boards Association has removed this policy from their sample policy list as well because it was replaced by ACAB.
Because that was a concern of mine when I went to go look at ACAB. And then I asked, and Michael pointed me to the rules and procedure, and I said, oh, there it is. Got it.
And this is up for action. Motion to remove policy GBAA, sexual and other harassment for employees, because it's covered elsewhere.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? And then anything to highlight or anything anyone saw in the first reading of the other policies?
I would like to know how the conversation around policy afterward.
It was a surprisingly long conversation, actually. We looked at the New Hampshire School Boards Association policy, and there were certain aspects of their policy that had been taken out of ours and that we liked and thought were a good idea to add in. So that was really how that sort of unfolded.
Yeah, we talked about how lengthy the School Boards Association sample policy is around this, and how we appreciated how general ours is to the degree where we wanted to keep what we currently have, but add in the general guidelines that were in the School Boards Association policy
Got rid of the
as a process.
You want to get rid of the gift?
Yeah, we decided that maybe
Yeah.
the motivating factor for, monetary support,
Yes.
maybe we shouldn't dictate what the motivating factor is.
It shouldn't be requiring people to get money in order to have a facility named after them.
Right.
Could be a revenue source.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good fun robotics.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yeah, on the ethics, on and off duty. Maintain high standards in their conduct while on and off duty. How's that?
Do you have a line?
4 and 5. How's that carried out? Off duty is what I guess where I'm going.
Yeah, so if there's a complaint made by any of our employees that are outside of regular school hours, we also need to investigate that because it falls into the staff ethics. So I tell people that you are hired as a public servant, you're in the eyes of the public, and your off-duty actions may lead to an investigation if it's considered misconduct.
And that's required.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Anything that could lead to what would be considered educator misconduct,
Yeah.
we have to report it to the state.
So would things like DWI or that type of thing fall into that, under that umbrella or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, they will be up for action at the next meeting. All right. We have Appendix B nominations, clerk nominations. And the retirement request isn't really a request, is it?
Well, the board has to accept it, acknowledge it. It's required,
Acknowledge.
yeah, they have to present the people who want to be separation. The board can grant up to 6, but it has to have, separation has to have board approval.
Do I have to do action?
Yes.
All right, so the first thing is Appendix B. Which can be done in public. There's nothing of a personnel nature.
Motion to accept the nominations for Appendix B.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. There's a clerk nomination that can be done in public.
Can we do it as presented on here, because it states a name?
What?
The recommend the motion states the name. Are we good to state that?
Absolutely, the district clerk, yeah.
Make a motion to appoint Diane Clary as district clerk.
Second.
Discussion of a non-personnel nature. All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay. We can recognize the resignation, which is for the end of this school year. And then we need to, am I accepting the retirement request? You probably have it in here, I don't know.
I don't have it, but you would make a motion to accept the retirement.
Make a motion to accept the retirement.
Second.
Discussion? So it actually on here says the retirement request is just information.
It shouldn't have been because the collective bargaining agreement says
We're
otherwise.
moving it to action.
Just.
Yeah, no, thank you. First, who was the first and second? Jeff and Randy. You probably got that.
Not for the retirement.
Okay. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? And we can answer this next week as well. The two positions that are going to be vacated, are those being filled next year?
Yes. One is paid out of a grant, and the second one is classroom teacher. However, you will see a savings in the budget.
What's that?
You will see a savings in the budget filling that position.
Is it enough to fund robotics?
It's all be part of the budget discussion next week. We're gonna have for you your default budget, your health insurance rates.
Okay, so we had a first and a second. Any other questions? We're in discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Motion to approve the October 22nd public meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
You need a second public communication.
Yes, I know, we skipped public communication.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were doing all the non-public stuff.
No. But we have a first and a second on the non-public meeting minutes.
Each individual one.
Huh?
Yes, yep.
I don't know who they were. Did you get who they
It
were?
was Randy and Jeff.
Okay. All those in favor, the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Now go back to, let's just do the second one then. since-
Motion to approve the October 29th non-public meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Public communication and correspondence. Anything else?
No.
Okay, we do have one thing.